Okay, so it just depends on what they want, and so you just need to ask them, how do you guys want this to flow? And then again, compare your notes with the sound person so that you kind of know, what's going on. So usually groomsmen and bridesmaids, so you can see there, sometimes they'll enter, or sometimes it's just the bridesmaid. Boy, this is really old. Have you guys ever been in a place where they actually rolled out a runner, a white runner? Okay, that's pretty old. That dates back to the 70s with Pastor Sam's wedding, when I got married. But they don't normally do this. Normally what the aisle runner is now is usually the flower petals that the flower girl does. But back in the day, they would roll the runner out and the flower girl would still throw the petals so that the bride's walking on an aisle runner. The last few times that I've said, would you like an aisle runner? They're like, a what? Who's that? What does that person do? Forget it. Then I'll explain what it was. Oh, and on our aisle runner thing that they were going to pull out, we had, which is Pastor Kenny now, but Kenny and another one of our cousins, when he started pulling the string, it broke. So what they did was, and this is on the camera and stuff, they weren't even really doing videos, is they had to bend over like this and walk backwards and roll the thing out the whole length of the church to get the thing rolled out. So anyway, weddings are always fun. So once that aisle runner is rolled out, if they do that, that's probably going to be an archaic thing that happened, but if someone asks, you know what it is, okay? It's just a white runner, you buy it at a wedding store, and it can actually be rolled out. Then the ring bearer, you've got the ring bearer, the ring bearer comes next, and then the flower girl comes after the ring bearer. The flower girl is the very last person to enter. She's preparing the way for the bride, she's throwing the flowers down. And then usually after the flower girl comes in, that's when the song usually changes and it goes to a canon in D. And then you got the father of the bride, that's when they enter. And then you have what's called I won't go through this whole thing because I'm not going to have time, because I want to talk about some other things. The statement of purpose, you'll say, what's the statement of purpose? What we'll do whenever we license you guys, or you guys get licensed, everybody will receive a book that will look like this. It's just called a Christian Minister's Manual. And in here is weddings, it's funerals, it's memorial services, it's just doing all kinds of different things that you might be called at. It's got different things if you want to counsel people, prayers for sick. It tells you how to do worship services, invocations, receptions for new members. It's got everything that you'd want to know about altar ministry. Talks about communion, baptism, weddings, funerals, dedications, ordinations. So this book is just chocked with everything. And I've used this book. I just use it a lot. You can kind of see what my book looks like now. But what I do is I use this little book when I'm doing a ceremony, because this is all I have. This is just right here in front of me, and I can have a handheld, or if you've got a lapel mic or something like that, and then I'm just reading off of this. And I can show you again as we get going into this. If you ever do this, I'll show you what what the wedding the ceremony actually looks like. So you're doing an opening prayer, covenant, a prayer of release. What a prayer of release is it's at the beginning of, if you've got a couple that this is their first time getting married, this is something that I offer to them. And what this is, it incorporates the mom and dad. And could incorporate, even if they're divorced or whatever, still, they could still come up. And you got to ask the bride and groom this, but mom and dads, both the mom and dads come up if they're both living. And what you're doing is you're incorporating them in the ceremony. And what they're doing is they're basically saying that they're giving their son and they're giving their daughter away to be united in marriage. It's just called a prayer of release. You read it, they just recite, we give our promise. And then there's scripture verses that you'll read. It's the whole thing about leaving and cleaving. That the bride says, start with the groom. The groom says, I will now leave my father and mother and I will cleave. There's a whole little, it's probably about 5, 6, 7 sentences. And then the bride does the same thing. I now leave my father and mother. Before the bride even takes the groom's hand, we do this prayer of release.
That's good.
Okay? Because what's happening is mom and dad are saying, I'm releasing my daughter to be married to this man. Mm-hmm. And the son in front of mom and dad and everybody there is saying, I'm leaving my mother and father and I am cleaving to my wife. And that's just called a prayer release. Very, very powerful to watch moms and dads actually do that. Dads are all tough during the practice, but when they get to the prayer release thing, you can kind of see he's giving his daughter away. You know, I've seen some dads, you know, pull the daughter's hand back. He's just jacking with them out of the abundance of the heart. He's just still trying to tell that guy, hey, you know, yes, I'm giving my daughter away. But I told Chris, my son-in-law, you know, that I was going to do that during the wedding. I said, I'm not going to give her, I'm not doing that. You know, of course I was messing with him. And I'm a pastor, so you know, but anyway, you got to kind of mess with your son-in-law, okay? You just got to keep him, just let him know, even though I am giving my daughter away, she's still my daughter, and you better treat her right. Okay, so you got this prayer release. Once you do that, the bride is still standing with mom and dad, and then you're saying, hey, who is giving this woman to be married to this man? Dad says her mother and I. And then at that time, I always have the dad shake the groom's hand, and then I have the dad actually place his daughter's hand in the groom's hand. That's the ultimate of I gave my daughter away today. So, and we can talk about that again, but just let you know how we do that. Then we just then there's different scripture verses we do. We do the exchanging of rings. There's just some other stuff I want to get to. So this is, you're not going to remember most of this stuff anyway. But and then there's a song right after the exchanging of rings. Because what happens is once you exchange your rings, usually they're going to either sign their marriage license. Here I kind of put it down here in this body. They're either going to do unity sand, they're either going to light candles, and maybe they might even want to sign their marriage license at this time. So what happens is you'll talk about the unity sand, you'll talk about the unity candles, and then a song starts playing. That's when they do the sand, that's when they do the unity candle, that's when they'll sign their marriage license, okay? That's what we did yesterday. We actually signed the marriage license while it was on the Lord's Supper table. Now some people say, no, I don't want to sign the marriage license during the ceremony. Maybe you're outside, the lady's got a huge gown, and in her mind she's thinking, you know, it's enough for me to do the unity sand or the candle. No, I don't want to sign the wedding license too. But I just asked, would you like to do that as a part of your ceremony? Because that way they're signing it, and you can do it afterwards. But I will tell you this about the signing the marriage license. If they don't sign it during the wedding, make sure you don't let the festivities begin or whatever. You track down the bride, you get the groom, and you make sure they get that thing signed and get it signed. It's usually the maid of honor, and the best man is usually the one that signed that. But things will get rolling and rolling and rolling, and you won't get that thing signed. So right afterwards, if they don't during the wedding, get that signed right afterwards. And what that'll look like, let me just talk about that. It's a sheet that's probably about this big, maybe a little bit bigger. And there's two portions. There's a top portion, real nice fancy copy, that's what they keep. And then there's a bottom portion, same type of information that you're going to mail to back to the city clerk. And what you do is you have them sign it in both places. There's two places, so the witnesses sign it, the bride and the groom sign it, you sign it in two places also. And then once it's signed, let me just tell you about the signing. The bride, she will sign her maiden name on that sheet. Okay, she doesn't get to sign her new name yet. So sometimes they might ask, and it's up in the body of the certificate. It shows her name and his name, and it's her maiden name. So you just say, no, you sign your maiden name, because she's ready to sign her new name. You know, as soon as the wedding's done, it's a done deal, I'm in, you know. But she signs her name for the last time there, and then of course she'll get her name changed. But here's what happens. It comes in a manila type of an envelope, about 8.5 by 11. What you do is, once it's all signed, you tear the bottom sheet off. I still have this from yesterday. You tear the bottom sheet off, and you can kind of about see how big it is, about here. And there's an envelope just like this. As soon as I tear that bottom sheet off, I immediately insert the signed copy, and I stick it inside my Bible. I don't stick it inside my coat. Don't stick it in your purse. Put it somewhere where you're going to remember this thing, because what you're wanting to do is the next day. I brought this for show and tell, so I'm going to mail it today. But today I'll put a stamp on it, put the return address, and I'll put that in the mail. So you're telling them, you guys don't have to worry about anything. I'm turning this into the city clerk. Then what you do is you take their copy, which is a nice pretty thing if they want to put it in a
frame.
Thank you, in a frame or whatever, they can do that. But what you do is you stick it back inside of the envelope, seal it, and then you find what you would consider the soberest, most responsible person that you can find, and you want to give this and say, this is their marriage license. Don't give it to the bride or the groom. They're in La La Land, okay?
Yeah.
So find someone who's going to be responsible, and usually throughout the wedding, throughout the rehearsal, you've got a good idea of someone who's kind of running the show besides the bride and the groom, okay? So you give that back to them once that's done. I kind of did a whole long thing but before we went here, but then you're doing the pronouncement of marriage. And what you want to ask them, you want to write this down now. How would you like to be introduced? Okay, sometimes they want the man and the wife's name. Sometimes they want Mr. and Mrs. Yesterday was Mr. and Mrs. Harold Norris, or Norrison, I forget his name now. I think it's Norris. But anyway, you want to write that down because you want to know you're going to be saying, is my honor and my privilege to introduce to you for the first time in public, Mr. and Mrs. And sometimes they want the wife's name or whatever. But I always ask them, how would you like to be introduced? And then they have to stop, look at one another, how should we be introduced? You know? And usually the bride will go, blah, 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 blah. Because the bride has the answers to everything. So anyway, you want to make sure you get that right. And then, of course, then you're doing the kiss. And then once the kiss is over, that's when you will, well, this is Tom, and, oh, okay, this little thing here I left down, this is my niece's wedding. So it was Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Weaver. You know, his name is Tom, but he might want to be called Thomas. You know, it might be, you know, I'm Sam, but maybe I'd want it to be said Mr. and Mrs. Samuel Holiday or whatever. You just don't want to ever assume how they want to be announced, so you want to do that. And then usually, right after that, there's an exit song. So what you do is you're telling the couple, here, let me just say this. The whole time I'm talking to them, I say, when you're standing up in front of me, I don't want you to look at me. I always tell them that. I said, I want you to be looking into one another's eyes. I know I'm talking to you, and I know you're going to answer me, and I know it's polite to be looking at me, but this thing is between you two guys only. I'm just a voice, but I don't want you looking at me. I said, I want you staring into one another's eyes. Now, the majority of people will, but some people just don't. They're just going to turn and they're looking at you, you know. And so even when I'm talking, I don't usually say anything, but whenever it goes to do the vows or the exchanging of the rings or something like that, and I'll say, okay, now, Rosa, I want you to look into Harold's eyes. So then they go, oh, it's because then they're like, oh, okay, that's right, he told us to do that. But I always want them looking into each other's eyes. Right. So, you know, that's just a key thing is they're starting off that relationship, that when you talk to someone, you should give them eye contact. And sometimes there will be some people that really have a hard time giving eye contact. You're not going to solve that problem, but just when you're doing the exchanging the vows and stuff, at least you got them practicing that while they're there and stuff. And it just means so much more. So anyway, once you pronounce them, you know, blah, 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 there's cheers, blah, 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 then you turn them around and say, well, when you pronounce them, they give their kiss. You say, okay, now I want you to turn around and just hold on, let me introduce you. I say that to them. And so I have them turn around. When they turn around and they're facing everybody, that's when I say, you know, I want to introduce to you. And then they know that there's going to be an exit song. And she'll wait until that exit, because she's got the whole thing down. She knows what's supposed to happen when. And because yesterday I forgot to invite Aisha up there when they were going to sing the song during the candlelight thing. But I had the moms had to come up during the service and do the candlelight thing. So I had them doing that. Started talking to the candlelight thing, what I should have done. And again, this thing was kind of switched because it's not exactly what we're going to do. I should have had her also come up and stand there, and then I should have talked about, I should have put everything in line, and then started talking about it. But I had the moms come up and light the candles, because when I'm talking about the candles, it says, and these 2 candles that are lit, well, they wouldn't have been lit unless I had mom and dad, or the 2 moms, come up, because normally they're lit at the very beginning of the service. They said, well, we'd like him to do it during the service. I'm like, okay, no problem. But then you, the one who's facilitating, you've got a way you've done it all this time. Right. So in your mind, you're doing what the bride and groom wants. But if there's changes like there was yesterday, and additions like there was yesterday, you're flying by the seat of your pants. And so you're really trying to make sure that you're doing everything right. So, because you're it, folks. You're the one that's doing this thing. So I could see Rosa kind of saying something to Harold when I was doing this. And so I had made the bride antsy because she knew that her girlfriend was going to come up and sing. And I knew that too. I had it in my nose. I knew she was going to do it. I just didn't get her up there soon enough because we didn't talk about that during the rehearsal. So the bride was going in her mind, is this knothead going to bring her up because she's going to sing? So as soon as I introduced her, and I did it smoothly, I said, now I want Aisha to come, she's going to sing this, so come on up, blah, blah, blah. And I could see Rosa looking at her and goes, I told you. So I'm like, dang, you know. But that's just, those are the type of things you just got to flow and you just roll with, you know.
Well, nobody knew, so it's okay.
Nobody, no, just me and Rosa, and then Harold, of course, he knew. She's like, she was going to sing. I'm like, But anyway, that's just one of the things that you write up and you can write a book about later of your experiences. So as they turn, they kiss, they turn, they're facing the audience, you announce it, blah, blah, blah. Then the sound person will do the exit sound, the exit song. They'll exit, and then usually what's happened during your practice, then what happens is the couples come together and then they go out. So what you do is when you're doing the wedding rehearsal, you have the couples come together, meet, and then they walk out. And a lot of times they want to go fast, and I just tell them during the rehearsal, give them time. I said, let them get to the first row of chairs. So that gives good separation. Because you're normally, well, not always, but normally you're videoing it, and then almost always someone's snapping photos. So it just helps when there's a little bit of separation. So what I tell them is, because they'll say, well, so when do I go? Just let them get to the first chairs, and then it's okay. And then sometimes I'm just standing there and I'll say, go, 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 you know, type of thing. But that gives separation so that you can have pictures and it can happen and stuff like that. And besides, it happens really fast. Usually the exit song is, you know, it's pumping, it's something jazzy, and they're usually walking out pretty quick, okay? Okay. Then the refreshments, and then it just depends on what they're wanting to do. You can say, hey, this concludes our service, and if there's refreshments going on, you just find out from the couple what is going to take place, what would you want me to announce. You just announce that. And pretty much your time is done, unless they want you to pray over the food or something like that, and you just ask them, you want me to, you know, would you like me to pray over the food? Sometimes in some of these wedding rehearsals, if it's a big wedding, if it's a family wedding, I'm staying. But a lot of times when it gets to this point and they're going to do the reception and stuff, if they don't need me, I don't go. I do the wedding, and your time is done. So now what I want to do, that's something I want to show you guys. Whenever you're doing the wedding rehearsal, so you're at the destination where you're at. I think this is back in the notes. Let me see. I totally just left these notes in the dust here. Yeah, let's go over to these sheets that say 21, 22, and 23. And let's go over to, let's just start at 21. I'll just roll through this real quick. I've got 10 minutes here. So very first thing, whenever you're starting to do the rehearsal, you're going to have to gather everybody together. Again, you're going to have to say, hey, is everybody here? If they say yes, then you're just going to have to be loud and boisterous and say, okay, hey, I want everybody to gather up here to the front. So you bring everybody here to the front. And then this is what you do. You set everybody in place where they're going to stand. Before you even do anything, this is what I do. You put everybody in place. So the bride's going so whenever they walk in, wherever their final destination is, that's what you set up at this time. You're standing right here, you tell them, hey, we're going to put you all in place. And so the bride's here, the groom's here, best man, maid of honor, all the ladies and guys who are standing in line, flower girl, ring bearer, and everybody's in that place where they're supposed to be. If moms and dads, if they're going to do the prayer release, moms and dads are standing right there. So you get everybody in the place when the last person comes up, when you're ready to start the wedding. Then once you get everybody in the place, you say, okay, welcome everybody. I'm going to open this practice with a word of prayer, and then we're going to go through the whole thing. So what you're doing is you've already set them in place where they're going to go so they know where they're going to go. So you open in prayer, you just invite the power of the Holy Spirit there. A lot of times there's already drinking going on there. You know, people are standing with a beer in their hand. Man, you just invite the power of the Holy Spirit. You invite the anointing because you want the anointing to be there when you're doing this. You don't want to just do this on your own. Place everyone on the stage in place where they'll be standing. Okay, we talked about that. Then you explain the entire order of the service to everyone while they're standing in place. So everything that we just went over, prayer release, mom's coming in to light the candles, grandma's going to be seated, because in that way you've got Freddie and Johnny who's going to walk grandma down. You address Freddie and Johnny. Freddie and Johnny, you're going to walk grandma down. You're going to put them on the second, the third seat on the front row. You go through that whole thing. That way you've got everybody standing where they're at. And then once you do that, you go through the whole thing, and then you ask, are there any questions? And again, if someone's wanting to change the service, or someone's saying this or that, you will have to say, depending on the question that was asked, no, this is the way the couple wants to do that, so we're going to leave that this way. But thank you for that suggestion. And then I go, is there anything else? I don't sit there. I don't wait. I don't look for a reaction. I'm really not doing a lot of emotional responding. we could do that. I do that at a later time. I do it very nicely though, but if they're wanting change, I think it would be better, someone might say, I have this, I think it would be better if, and I just let them say what they wanted to say, and then I said, that I understand that really sounds great, but we're going to do it this way. This is the way that we planned it, so we're going to do it this way. And then I just let that go. And so far, I've never had a bride throw me under the bus. Because I've told them, you know, basically, I'm protecting you, I'm helping you, and because I said, is there anybody here that might want to change things around, and they'll know if some, yeah, Aunt Sally might, or my mom might, or whatever. And I said, okay, no problem. I'll just say, this is how we plan it, and this is how we're going to do that. And they don't normally say anything back. I've never had anybody, once they give their suggestion, and I squashed it in a very nice, loving, kind way, I've never had them come back to me and say, you know, what are you, nuts or something? Or, you know, I've never had anybody say it. They just, you know, I could see that they didn't like that, and that I didn't take their suggestion, but it was good for the bride and the groom, and basically people are going to get over it.
How many times do you run through this? As many times as they need you to?
Yeah, it's usually just once. So here's what happens. You set everybody in place, you go through the whole doggone thing. I said, okay, does everybody understand the process and what we're doing? And they say yes. And I said, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to file back out, and we're going to run through the service. And then we just run through it, the whole thing, all over again. So then they'll come up, the bride, you know, how we do that. The moms will walk up like they light the candle. The moms will walk back. We do the whole thing, from bringing grandma in, if grandma happens to be at the practice. So we do the whole thing. I haven't had to do it more than once. Once people are set, because everybody's been to a wedding. Everybody's got a pretty good idea with what's going on. And so once you put them in the right place, they know, because that's the main thing. Where am I standing? Where's my place? So when you do it at the very beginning, it really helps, okay? And the only thing that you'll have to do is if they're doing the sand or whatever is, depending on where they're doing the sand at, which is usually kind of behind you a little bit, you'll have to step out of the way. Maybe the maid of honor will have to step out of the way. So normally you're lining up like this. Does that make sense? You're lining up kind of like a V where everybody's turning and facing, and they just kind of stagger. And so whenever you're lighting the candle or whenever they're doing the sand, you just have them just kind of move to the side. That's just so that everybody can see in the audience what they're doing, and they can get a video shot and a camera shot of that. Okay, does that make sense? Place everybody where they will be when the wedding begins. Okay, we did that. Walk through the entire service, which is what we do without stopping. So we just do the entire service, what we had just talked about, and then we let them ask questions, make any adjustments, and go for a final run. I've never really had to do a final run. It seems like everybody did pretty good when we did that once we got everybody up there. So, okay. Any questions for me? Let me tell you, well, real quick, let me just give you this. This is a, you've got these copies right here, 1, 2, and 3. We're at the wedding celebration. You guys see this?
Yeah.
This is just another sample. This is what Bob May did when he did a wedding. So what he did was, he took everything that we just went through. He took this sheet right here, your wedding notes, and then he compiled his wedding notes off of this when he met with the couple, and this is what he came up with. So what he did was he probably has a black folder, probably something that looks like this. You can get these very cheap. That way, whenever you're doing something, you know, you're standing there and it looks really nice. You can't see the papers and stuff. Hopefully you got a lapel. If not, you've got a handheld. But basically, if you've got 3 pages, which he does, really all you'll have to do is just turn 1 page. See how that was? You really couldn't see, you know, that very much. You're just kind of standing there and you're holding your mic. So that's probably what he did. But anyway, what I wanted to do is just give you another example. So if you're ever doing one, he basically has written everything out. He even has written out what he's going to say. So if you get in a certain place and you get stuck or whatever, you've got it written out. So, and of course, the more you do it, the more the more you'll be able to do it without having to worry about anything. And then again, once you have these this little book, everything is in this little book. And again, whenever you get ready to do a wedding, come in and meet with me or one of the other chaplains that have done it. Bob and Karen May will help train also, but I'll show you exactly how we do. I use this because this is a lot smaller, and sometimes I'll hold, like yesterday I was holding the rings, because when the ring bearer, who we did not practice and who wasn't supposed to be in the ceremony, got up to the front, the rings fell off the pillow. So when they fell off the pillow, everybody was like, oh no. So I just looked at one lady and I said, it's okay, get the rings. So she got the rings and she's like, what do I do? She's like, so she gave them to me, so I held them. So, just different things that you got to do to improvise. And the thing is, you don't want to lose your cool or act like, oh no, this is, you just roll with it, because what you want to do is you just want to keep the anxiety level down as low as you can possibly keep the anxiety level down, okay? Yes?
Question. Have you ever been asked to do a wedding, since you were talking about a lot of people are now having them outside of the church, like the skydiving, roller coasters and all that?
I've never had a skydiving roller coaster yet, no. I don't know how you would do that skydiving.
I was going to say, at what point, when they asked you, would you say?
I guess it would be a personal thing. I don't know if you'd skydive or not. So it would just kind of be, and I don't know if I don't think I would do that either, technically. But if they really were adamant about you doing the thing, maybe you could say, well, why don't you do that, and then when you land, then we could do it right there. So I don't know. No, I've never been asked to do one on a roller coaster.
Odd weddings now.
My question is the contact part of how do we contact you personally when we want to get a sample of the wedding so that we can actually see what one is and how you do it?
Sure. Yeah, just protocol? Just holler me. Well, right now, here's what we're going to do. We're working on this even a little bit more. Like yesterday or last week, we talked about funerals. Karen May is the one that does the funerals. Bob does our weddings. And so what we do is we normally would have them, kind of help you do these weddings and stuff, but we need to set that procedure in place even a little bit firmer. So just starting off, you can contact me, but the protocol or procedure would be Bob and Karen in our chaplain ministry, because the chaplain ministry is a massive ministry that has a lot of umbrellas underneath it with end of life and all the different things we do, phone calling, there's leaders over all those things. So over funerals and weddings, Bob and Karen May are the leaders that are over that group right now.
Okay.
So, but for right now, if you needed something, you can just kind of start with me, and we'll get that all in place. Yes.
I know a couple people who've got a license on the internet.
Okay.
Now, I love all this explanation and everything. It's very full and detailed. How does this compare? Does that just do basics and it's legal?
Yeah. Anybody can get it. You can get a degree in 30 minutes over the internet nowadays. Well, really not true, but something like that. And as far as I know, they're legit. But if you guys want to be licensed, we can license you through Skyway Church, and you're licensed through the state of Arizona, and it's recognized as as such. So. Yes, there are people that just want to do weddings, and they got cameras, and they go online, and they get certified, and they can do weddings. And
so they're okay, but I wouldn't want to
totally,
do that.
Totally legal, yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Deborah?
For graduation, are you going to send out protocols of what we should wear? Because I remember last year.
Thank you.
What to wear.
Yes.
She was.
Yeah, I'm going to have Sherry write down what we should wear, since she has the corner on it.
Oh.
We'll do that for the graduation there. I just want to know. Yeah, we'll send a whole itinerary and the whole thing. So we'll do that just prior
Basically
to.
not casual, no jeans, slacks for men, and slacks are dresses for girls.
I told them about the wedding yesterday. So, but don't comment on that. we're out of time. We're out of time. Okay, hold on. Before we close, all of the chaplains, we need to get your pictures that are graduating. So Philip's here, he's going to take, so before you go, make sure, and this is, well, let me ask you, the alumni, do any of the alumni, Alicia, you needed another picture, didn't you? Okay, make sure you get one. Deborah, make sure you get a picture taken today. Demetrius, do you need another picture for your badge? Like the one that, do you have a badge?
Yes, I have a badge
Yeah,
and I have a picture.
Okay. Is it good? Okay, so if you've got a bag with a picture. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
That's so funny. Go ahead.
Everybody be blessed. Thank you for watching us online. Okay, so.